The BumbleKast is for entertainment purposes only. The host's comments and opinions, and those of their guests, are wholly their own and do not represent that of any other entity. Content is provided as is, with no guarantees of accuracy or timeliness. Unauthorized redistribution or editing of the BumbleKast in whole or in part is strictly prohibited.
It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Comic the Hedgehog.
This one's all about Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Ooh.
Alright, here's the first one. One character who's a bit confounding is Major Sulph J. Kimbley. I personally see him as nothing more than a racist loon. He seems like a lazily written character, and that his only motivation for doing anything seems to boil down to he's crazy. Yet other fans are fascinated by him and see a fair bit of depth in his character. What are your thoughts?
First off, since this is all about Brotherhood, spoiler warning going in. If you have not watched or read the series, do that first and then come back, because I'm not going to hold back this episode. As for Kimbley, he's not my favorite. I don't feel like he has the same nuance as the rest of the cast, so I'm in agreement with you there. But I don't feel like he's just, cuckoo bananas. It's just he's very selfish. He's entirely self-serving. And it's a very basic motivation, but it's not impossible. There are people like that out there. He's just a very talented individual who's a bit of a sociopath and will do whatever it takes to get what he wants / entertain himself. And sometimes people are just that single-mindedly awful. So it does seem stark given just how much there is to all the other characters, but I don't feel like it's lazy on him. Like, the rest of Full Metal is so intricately designed that for him to be so simple has to be by design. It has to be purposeful. It's not an oversight.
If you were blessed with the opportunity to write a story in the Amstrian universe in any capacity, what kind of story would you tell? You can set it before, during, or after the main story and use any character.
I would like to do a kind of street level average citizen perspective. Like, not necessarily even tied to the military, just someone who just lives their day there and kind of give the perspective of the world as the series goes on. Tell very slice of life stuff and see how that kind of life would be played out in a world of this crazy alchemical super science type of environment. How much does it affect your daily life and how much does it not?
Next up, would you leave Show Tucker in charge of your cats? What do you think would happen if you did?
I wouldn't feed him to my cats.
What does that mean?
That means I would not upset their tummies with his corpse. I'm saying Show Tucker is going in a trunk to the bottom of a lake.
What does he explain his character to me quickly.
Show Tucker, all right. I want to make absolutely sure that I'm getting this right and I'm not confusing him with another character, but I am 99% sure I got this.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so Show Tucker was one of the state-sponsored alchemists who was not particularly good at his job, and he needed a breakthrough in his research to continue to get funding. And he managed to make a chimera that could speak like a person. Also, mysteriously, his wife disappeared at the same time, and the chimera would just say, "Kill me." So, fast forward a little bit, and the main characters meet Shao because they're looking into his experience ties into their own investigation. They meet his lovely daughter and their big floofy dog, and they're having a grand time. And Shao is coming up for review again. Still hasn't produced anything since that last chimera. If he wants to keep his funding, he has to have results.
Uh-oh.
So the brothers show up, and there's a new talking chimera that looks a lot like the dog.
Oh, no.
And has the little girl's hair and knows their names.
Okay. Now I get it. Okay. I understand.
He dies horribly, if that's any consolation, but
okay. Well,
the damage is done.
That's good. All right, next question. One of the most impressive parts of the story is how the homunculi all die ironic deaths. Lust is on her knees, gluttony is eaten, envy is jealous, sloth is overworked, pride is humbled, wrath is peaceful, and greed is satisfied. Which death do you think was handled the best, and do you have a favorite homunculus?
Oh God, they're all so cool. You just want me to geek out for like an hour. I know what you're up to, comic. I'm partial to Lust's defeat because, good Christ, the animation budget on that one. Like, it's Mustang's finest hour. She goes out like a champ anyway. Like, it's not a one-sided defeat. He has to pour everything out just to stop her. And at that point, she's the most dangerous person on the field. So it's a satisfying fight. Good night. Envy, I think he overstayed his welcome. I wasn't as satisfied with his whole thing, but he's gone, so whatever. Gluttony, again, neat, but didn't stay with me as much. Sloth, I feel like, is introduced so late in the game. You don't get a ton of time to get into him, but he's a very simple gimmick, so that's fine. I also like the, extremely understated and then completely overpowered execution. I love that trope. It's great. Wrath, oh my God. Just, I will forever remember. That's one of my core memories when Aaliyah and I were watching the anime, and we hadn't read the manga up to that point, and the train explodes, and we're like, huh. I mean, it makes sense that would take him out, but it seems a little surprising that's how they would write him out of the story. And then he shows up again with that big speech during the invasion, and we both just kind of paused and went, oh shit. Oh my God, what a beastly man. Make that fun. Good stuff. And Greed, I wasn't as fond of Lynn and Greed's association. That whole thing is fine. It's fine, but I guess of the two, it would be Lust and Wrath are my personal favorites, but they're all really good when you get down to, like, Gluttony's freaking terrifying, like the shack in the woods and everything.
All right, next question. Would Roy Mustang or Olivier Armstrong be better as Führer? How would their reigns be different? Both of them would implement a miniskirt government, according to the mega bonus panel.
Of the two, I think Mustang is the better choice for the full Emissarian direction. Not to say Armstrong is not competent. She absolutely would run an incredibly tight ship, but she lacks the diplomacy and the people person element. Where she is stationed, that she's absolutely perfect. They need a harsh, direct, unyielding ruler there. But Roy knows how to work with people. He knows how to be political if he needs to be. And he can be firm when he needs to be. He's the best of both. He can be the politician and he can be the military leader. So that's what a whole country needs.
One of the few characters who doesn't die, get arrested, or get a happy ending is Yoki. We see him unhappily dressed up as a circus clown with Darius and Heinkel. But other than that, it seems like his fate at the end is largely unknown. What kind of ending do you think would be satisfying for him and for the audience?
I'm honestly satisfied enough with that. Like, he had more of an arc than I would have expected, which is more than he deserves. And having a ignoble, inglorious, forgettable finale to his arc is befitting. It's not a terrible ending. He made amends. He survives. He has a job. That's sufficient. He should be happy with it.
You're given the choice of strength training with the Armstrong siblings or martial arts training with the Curtis couple. Both choices are equally committed to making you the best fighter you can be by any means necessary. Also, you're not allowed to leave until the training is complete. Which do you choose and how long do you last? You have to pick.
I mean, with the Curtises, I might come out on the other side, but if we're talking about I have to commit to the whole thing, maybe the Armstrongs, because then at least I'll die quickly. It will be a merciful, swift, crushing defeat, rather than the long, drawn-out, grueling, we're going to make a better you, and I'm just ground into a fine powder.
Sure. Gonna make a better you whether you like it or not.
I'm going to be made into a pate.
Do you think there was ever a possibility that Roy Mustang's flame alchemy could be used for good without its wielder ever straying from that path? Or do you think it's like the One Ring or the Death Note, where everyone who uses it will eventually succumb to the temptation to abuse it?
It's such a destructive force. I don't see how it could be used for anything other than destruction. Like, good intentions, sure, but we all know what the path to hell is paved with. So even if one were to try to stay virtuous, I feel like there would be an inevitable someone gets caught and burned by it.
I know the easy answer is everything, but what are your favorite things about this story? If you had to choose, what would you say is the absolute best part?
Oh, boy.
Good luck, Ian.
I'm trying to think of something that isn't one big umbrella statement, but it's either the characters or the narrative construction. Because the characters, even the incidental ones, even the ones that pop back up and you're like, wait, really? You're coming up again? There is a charming endearment or interesting aspect to each and every one of them. And when they exit one way or another, you feel it. And to have such a large cast and each of them being so clearly defined and enjoyable in some form or another is just astounding. And playing into that is the way that it builds, that each character is added and means something to the greater story as well as their own personal narratives. And it keeps building and building layer upon layer, and the interconnected elements are intricate, but they're not obtuse. And there's elements I'm sure that I have forgotten over time, or a character pops up, I'm like, wait, what was their deal? I remember this. But it doesn't feel convoluted. It all feels like this was building to a point, and it reaches it, and it culminates, and it's just satisfying. It's just an exquisitely crafted story top to bottom.
Nice. All right, we got one last question. We see glimpses of Amestris' neighboring nations, but never know too much about them. If a sequel or prequel were to properly explore Ishval, Jing, Drachma, Xerxes, Erugo, or Krita, which one would you want to see? Assume no existing characters would be involved and the entire cast would be original characters.
Yes, very good. I feel like any of those, it needs to be standalone. And if there is mention of what's going on to those weird guys over there, it's more of like distant political discourse. If we were to go to Ishval, I would either want to see well before the genocide or after. I do not want to revisit that segment because we know what happens and it's absolutely horrible. And I don't feel like there would be a way to revisit it that just doesn't revel in the destruction. Even if it was treated maturely and by highlighting what a horrific event it was, I don't feel like there would be anything gained from exploring it. We know what happened. We don't need to see it in great detail. Let the dead rest, he said reverently of fictional people. Like either look at Ishval in its heyday and then kind of end with the last few years before the invasion, which is kind of a somber note to end on, or see how they have rebuilt. How did they recover from the loss? How did they deal with the trauma? How did they rebuild their society and their culture? And how do they view the rest of the world and their inaction? Or did the other nations intervene quietly somehow? That might be something to look into. The other one I think that we actually have enough to go off of would maybe be Xing, and looking at the emperor and the incredibly complex court interactions there as they all vie for power. That could be some real Game of Thrones stuff right there. God, just imagining the basic cast is terrifying. You go for miles with that. And the other ones I'm sure you could dig into. But those are the first two that I would immediately gravitate towards.
Alrighty. Well, we've reached the end of this BumbleKast Mini.
Thank you to Comic the Hedgehog for sponsoring this BumbleKast Mini. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
See ya.